Okay, I believe we are live. Hello, everybody. So, when we dare to be powerful, we women create organizations, we collaborate with allies, we use art as a tool for liberation, and we create incredible events such as this. Good evening and welcome to the first ever Women Sweet on Women Black Lesbian Film Festival, celebrating and centering the life and legacy of Audre Lorde. My name is Shadra Pittman, and I'm the vice chair of Zami Nobla, which is a national organization of Black lesbians on aging, where we are building a base of power for Black lesbians 50 and above. So on behalf of Zami Nobla, Out on Film and Sisters in Cinema, in partnership with Third World Newsreel, Beyond Bold and Brave, Black Lesbians United, and AARP Georgia, we thank you for making history with us. Now, invite your friends to participate in this festival, those of you who are watching and tuning in. They can buy tickets up until February 21st at www.zaminobla.org. Audre Lorde once said that women are powerful and dangerous, and we are. But we are also brave, we are also creative, innovative, and unapologetic. And with that, I'm gonna pass it to Joy.
Thank you, Shadra, for that beautiful introduction to tonight. My name is Joyy Norris. I will be your moderator this evening. I'm the operations manager, programs manager with Sisters in Cinema, here tonight with filmmaker Ashley O'Shea, who directed, shot, and produced this beautiful documentary, Unapologetic, with highlighting the work of Bella Boss and Janaé Bonsu, our wonderful subjects this evening. So thank you so much, you all, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So to jump in, I know you all have talked a lot about this film over time. Ashley, it took you years to create this work. Just to catch people up, what was the genesis of this film? What inspired this story in particular? These stories in particular?
Yeah, the inspiration for this film was the young Black people that were organizing in Chicago in the fall of 2015. At the time, they were continuing to uplift the name of Rekia Boyd, who had been killed by an off-duty police officer. And in that season, we're continuing to hold him accountable by kind of interacting with the Chicago Police Board that was charged with police firings and other misgivings from the Chicago Police Department. And so the strength of that campaign aside, something else that I was noticing at the time was that the voices that were being centered and the most uplifted in that space were, young Black women that I felt that I could really closely identify with. And that wasn't something that I had really seen a lot when I was learning about social movements in my education. And so there was just like an energy and an electricity to that season of time that marked something really important and special in Chicago. And so I didn't want that season to pass without it being documented in some way. Certainly did not think it was going to be a featured film at the time, but I met Janaé and started following her in her journey. And then a few months later, I met Bella. And as you see, they are just, such incredible human beings. And so I felt like I just had a responsibility to shed some light on their journeys.
So for Janaé and Bella, what made you trust Ashley to follow you through your lives for this long, to spend this much time with her? What made you know that this was a person that you could, expose yourselves to in this way and your work?
Yeah, for me, I just hold a general politic around trusting Black women. I think that I would have, my willingness to participate in whatever this was going to be, because like Ashley said herself, like she didn't know that this would turn into like a feature film. So I certainly didn't when she approached me, but my whole energy would have been very different, if she wasn't a Black woman. And so the fact that this turned into essentially 5 years of like, she'd have been in my house, she'd have been in my people's house in South Carolina, like she's met my dissertation advice, like there's been so many spaces that, I've opened to her. But it was off the strength of, or just the general principle of like, she is invested in telling a story of leadership and resistance that is counterintuitive to how history has represented leadership in social movements, in Black social movements. And so if I could contribute to this narrative shift about who is at the center of resistance and struggles on the ground against oppressive policing, oppressive policing, that's like redundant, but you know what I mean?
It's like a double negative.
But yeah, I wanted to do what I could to shift the story that was being told, shift the narrative of who's involved in movements. And yeah, I mean, at the time it was presented like, I'm like a student or about to be graduating or whatever. I was like, I'm a student too. I'm struggling. Whatever I can do to help another struggling Black student, I'm gonna do it. Who knew it was gonna be this, right? But yeah, it had a lot to do with who she was and the story that she was seeking to tell through this. That made me say, all right, I'm down with it.
Yeah, and for me, I got real trust issues, so that was real tough for me. I automatically assume everybody is the feds. Everybody, everybody is William O'Neill. You feel me? I'm like, that's how they gonna get me. They gonna have a Black woman do it. Well, that's how they gonna trick me. Well, I'm gonna let my guards down. Next thing you know, I'm out of here. I was a little skeptical. I ain't gonna lie, but it was her spirit. It was her spirit. It was like when you feel good energy, you know it. You know what I'm saying? When people, and she was just so genuine. She was like fresh out of college. She was like, at first I just thought really she had a crush on me or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking she just got a little crush or something. Okay, you want to have a camera. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, that's no excuse to be around me or whatever. You know?
I gotta say, I love how your relationship has definitely evolved from being like completely untrusted to being like, I will. You tell on Ashley real quick.
Me out.
No, our relationship grew so much though. Like it took the whole 5 years of filming it though. Like it wasn't just like, okay, now that I let you in, I'm gonna let you all the way in. Like, no, it was baby steps. Like I resisted her really getting to know my mama and stuff, like, because that's real personal to me. I'm like, okay, it's one thing for me to just tell what I feel or what I think. I do that all day anyway, like that's no problem. But really letting people in, letting them come see my family, letting them come meet my family. She went with me to go visit my brother. Like that's something I don't do. I don't really let people in like that. So it really took a lot, but she really cultivated that. Like she was really persistent and caring, and in a way that it was just like, okay, I want you to see this. I want you to be the one to tell this part of my story. If anybody gonna tell it, because I know that you are really genuine, and I know that you really are going to care for how my story is being told, especially because I just really then gave you so much trouble even getting to this part that I know that you're not finna just fumble the ball. I already know that it.
So glad you are honest about it, because yeah, I mean, like Janaé it was quick, but yeah, you took a little time, but it's all good.
Opposite ends of the spectrum when it came
Yeah.
to trust.
Not saying Janaé didn't have her guards up about certain things, but yeah, it's funny to see the differences.
Well, that's a nice segue to my next question, because with so many 5 years of footage, you have met families, you have seen these experienced these very vulnerable moments between Janaé and Bella. How then do you go back through all of the footage that you have to tell these specific stories? And how did you decide, like, if something felt too personal? Did you come up against like challenges of like, that doesn't feel right to tell or expose? Or, you know, when you create this kind of relationship, you start getting, you know, you develop an affection for your subjects, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it was even more difficult because I was shooting almost all of these scenes. So I was really close to the material, to the point where I would just give it to my editor Ruben and like not look at it for a very long time. So the process of refining that and figuring out the stories that we wanted to come through really was another benefit of time, I think, because initially so much was happening in from like 2015 to like throughout 2016, like just in terms of like organizing in Chicago, that you know I would be out at least once a week filming an action or a campaign, and I thought like we're gonna put all of this stuff in the film because it all felt really important to me, and it was important. But you know that was kind of the moment when I had to go back to my roots of like film school and like thinking about like what makes an interesting story. And as we started to just get access to more spaces and get feedback about like what we had so far, it became clear that what people were most interested in were the stories of like the intimate moments with Janaé and Bella. And so we started to kind of move away from this like action, wanting to just highlight all of these different events, and started really trying to craft it around what they were going through. And so those were it was like moving in tandem, because like we would see something and figure something out, and then I'd be like, okay, I need to like try to go home with Janaé to South Carolina. Or you know, like the very last scene we filmed was going with Bella to visit her brother, and that was after we had already kind of put together a rough cut of the whole film, and it just felt like there was a really big missing piece. Like it was very clear that we had this storyline about how incarceration had affected her, but it was, you know, people understand more when when you show them versus tell them. So we really just trusted the process in that way. And you know, we're finally able to raise enough money to like do it full time for like 3 or 4 months, and that's when everything started to really coalesce.
That's great. I think going back to like these moments of reprieve, so to speak, from all of this, like the tension of protests and organizing and the stresses of Janaé, Bella, your lives, you know, it felt you really did a great job of punctuating the film with these like breaths so that, you know, unfortunately the audience doesn't feel the same overwhelm, right?
Yeah.
That it feels these, you know, these young women are experiencing all the time. And to Janaé and Bella, I'm so curious, you know, there's constantly things happening, right? There's one shooting after another. The next officer is getting off, and all, you know, it feels unending, right? We know that, we experience that. How do you take care of yourselves? And is that self-care practice just a part of BYP 100 also? How do you take care of each other when you need it too?
Such a great question.
Yeah, Janaé, I would like to hear how you've been taking
Yeah, I mean,
care.
it's such a great question because like I have to be cognizant of asking myself that to actually do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm much better at it now than I was in the midst of this in the midst of filming. I think from 2015 to whenever the last when did we start filming? 2020?
Oh, what was the last thing I filmed with you? Like, yeah, 2020.
Yeah, during that period of time, I would say like the big thing that kept me you know, together really was my sisterhood. Like I had a real strong like small circle of friends, like good friends that I know anything happened, you know, if I got arrested out of action, I could call one of my friends. Because especially being from South Carolina and living in Chicago, I didn't have, you know, a familial home base. I had to choose new family to be in my, you know, immediate social space, right? And yeah, like I'm blessed to have developed some really close relationships in Chicago that really kept me grounded. And they almost all exclusively I met through BYP 100 or a movement space. And so there's like a level of familiarity around like just the heaviness of the work that we were doing, right? But also just like able to, you know, let my hair down and kick my feet up and like try to not be overwhelmed about just the pervasiveness of state violence and, you know, all that we were fighting against, right? Like just have a night where we could just like watch problematic TV and like talk shit, you know? So, so yeah, I would say that was the biggest thing for me. I think closer to the end of the filming period, I had embarked on, or started to more intentionally embark on the spiritual journey that you know, kept me that allowed me to like connect more with my ancestors spiritually and just really get just do a lot of centering practices and meditation and really just like every day grounding or regrounding myself in my purpose and my lineage and legacy that I want to leave, etc. And I think, and that is what I'm continuing to cultivate today. That's really keeping me sane. But yeah, the act of self-care, I think it's centered around that, and also learning how to say no more. That was also critical too, and continues to be. My no game is actually really strong now. I'm proud to say. I'm a lot happier these days. I'm smiling. My skin is clear. Like, you know, I'm
Yes, we
learn how to say no, y'all. To what doesn't serve you and doesn't like fit in your space. I'm good at that now.
Beautiful. Good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would echo that and just say that like my self-care today looks a lot different than it did during the filming process. I guess everyone's probably does right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. But yeah, during like the course of going out to actions once a week, I think that might be really like what you want to know, how we maintained ourselves then. For me, during that time period, protesting was my self-care though. Like that was what I did to make myself feel better. Like I think I've talked about this before, talking about the film. Like while we were filming, I was very depressed. Like all of my activism and me going out to protest, all of that was really fueled by depression, right? Like I had we talking about 2015 when we started filming. My grandmother passed in 2015. That's the most important person in my whole world. That's my whole world changed. You know, like that was the pandemic, the shutdown before the shutdown for me. So me navigating that, like, anger just felt a lot better than depression to me, so that's why I chose to, like, do something with my anger, because I really couldn't do anything with my depression. So that was my self-care. These days, thank God, I'm not in that place anymore where I feel like caring for myself means going to yell at a stupid police officer. So, I do a lot of meditation myself, do a lot of yoga. Music, though, y'all saw that throughout the film, was me using music. That's my self-care too. Writing. So yeah, thank God we're not in that place no more.
Ashe.
And love. I don't think we talk about love enough in self-care. Like, my relationships have been kept me going. Even friendships, affirmations from people like you, Joy. You getting on the call before we started the conversation and just affirming, right? Like, and that was a good place to be in, as far as like being committed to social change in Chicago. Chicago is a beautiful place to affirm the revolutionary spirit, and so it was easy. Not easy, but it felt fulfilling to be doing the work that we were doing.
Absolutely. And so now, these years later, right, catch us up, like, where is the movement shifting? How have things progressed with just the goals that you are wanting to reach? Like the sisterhood thing, I think that is such a beautiful thing. And the demands you're making are, affecting the whole community. And it feels on the outside for us, I'm not an activist, unfortunately. I want change in this world for my community. But it feels like there are things that are just slow moving, and that's just inherent in the system. It feels like we're kind of just trained to be like, well, that's how things are. But from your vantage point, your ear to the ground, how have you seen things shifting since the start of the film to now in Chicago?
Since the start of the film to now, I would say, there have been, some wins. I think some wins weren't even captured on film. I feel like the stuff that was covered, or that even that came at the heels of a lot of the mobilizations and organizing that was happening, especially in the early years of 2015, 2016, the former Chicago police superintendent being fired, the ousting of Anita Alvarez, the end of Mayor Rahm Emanuel's reign. Those are all victories. I think since then there have been some major shifts that are happening, not just in Chicago, but just like across the country. I think particularly around people grasping onto this idea of defunding the police. And people debate it all the time, whether it's a good slogan or a bad slogan, whether it makes sense or whatever the case is. But the fact of the matter is, at the basic level, people weren't talking about defund the police at the scale that they are now. We always been talking about it. We always been demanding it. I'm like, hey, thank y'all for catching up now. Like, that's what we trying to tell y'all, but the fact that, it is being talked about on CNN and MSNBC and all of that stuff is because, it's I think a culmination of like the resistance that you were seeing in the film, right? And so, the fact that Lori Lightfoot in Chicago can't even fix her mouth to say, you know, that she's not invested in doing it. It's just fuel to the fire, right? To get us closer to where we want to be. So I think there's a lot of narrative shift happening. But then there's also just like the external forces of the pandemic, right? So that has changed the ways that people have had to actually organize, you know, strategy sessions and things like that, moving to Zoom, and then you got to think about like security issues and things like that, you know, like it's just for me, and just especially now that I have relocated out of Chicago, I do know that there's a lot more like mutual aid work happening, just because, like, yes, state violence is pervasive. It's like a constant. But when you add a global pandemic on top of it, you know, our people have like immediate needs that need to be met. And so like that's part of organizing for Black liberation too, right? And so you kind of have to shift your energies to like, so how do we make sure that we're all taken care of? How do we pool our resources together to handle that, so that we can be sustained to do this other fight too, right? So yeah, and from my perspective, I've seen a lot more mutual aid efforts, which I think is dope, and I think is abolitionist too. But yeah, I don't know what you think, Bella, being that you still Chicago all day, every day.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so I feel like what's changed, was that the question? What changed?
Yeah.
Since then? Okay, so I mean, really the whole world has changed since we were filming this, right? With the pandemic, with the uprisings after the murder of George Floyd. So with that did though, like, I don't think that there would have been that type of uprising, that type of response to the murder of George Floyd, the murder of Breonna Taylor, had it not been for the work that you saw us do in Unapologetic. And us, like, not just me and Janaé, but like everyone, every other person involved in that community, because we have been inspiring each other, like as far as like a community of revolutionaries, right? A revolutionary spirit. We have been inspiring each other since before 2015, right? But you got to think, we was all going to conferences, going to different states, going to, you know, even before 2015, going to Ferguson, the Mike Brown uprisings, you know, going to Stand and Rock, you know. So we've been mingling with different communities and exchanging revolutionary perspectives and strategies for years now. So like all of it is a culmination of camaraderie that we've been building for years, and for the push to be this big right now, like to be on a nationwide conversation, to have presidents and former presidents speaking about defund the police, like regardless of what context they're speaking about it in, that conversation would not be had it not been for the work of young Black revolutionaries, right? So it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful for me to see and experience. And something that really struck me about it was Angela Davis said in a recent interview that she did not think that she would see in her lifetime a moment where people were talking about abolition on a national scale, right? Like, this is Angela Davis. Like, baby, it's been decades, okay? So for you to not think that you would see this manifest, right? And for us to be like really young in our activism and see it manifest right now, it just gives me all types of hope and fuel to keep going, because it's like, it's really no telling what well, it is a lot of, it's telling, like it's very telling about what we can accomplish, right? If we just keep going, if we just stick to pace, if we just keep like fighting every day as if like this day could be the day that abolition happens, right? Even though it might not be for 100 years, right? Like just to keep going at it with this spirit that we are making changes. What we are doing right now is going to, it matters, right? And it's going to matter to future generations, right? Like I feel like, I ain't gonna lie, I feel like an OG. I know I'm super young in this, but I feel like an OG at this point. Like you asking what changed, but for real, like at this point, I kind of feel like OG a little bit, just because there's so many people younger than me who are leading the movements now, right? Like I'm not on the front lines no more. Like y'all crazy. I'm not.
That's so crazy.
Bella said, I'm supervising.
not like, no, I mean like I just no. Like
I feel you though, like there's a BYP 100 member that I had a one-on-one with last week that asked me to be a mentor. And I was like, who, me?
So see, I'm glad you all are bringing this up, because yes, you all are still very young, right? In what you're doing and setting out to accomplish. And I'm curious, I know there's a saying, in essence, basically the young are strapped with the fate of fixing all the problems in society passed down from the previous generations. This is sort of like a two-part question. One, do you feel that some part of your youth or these traditional years of just, you know, being free to do as you will, not having the stresses of like the world on your shoulders, do you feel you lost some of that in your activism? And two, how has that affected the relationship with older activists, like intergenerational activist relationships?
I think that's a profound question. So I think that, so I echo what Bella said about feeling different now, kind of feeling old, even though we're not old by any stretch of the imagination. But being where I am now, having the perspectives and experiences that I have had over the past, 7-8 years that I've just like been, involved in movement building, right? It makes me want to appreciate the old heads in my mind more, where at a time I'm just like, man, I always think they know everything, man, things are different now. Like, where I would have a little less patience for, what older organizers and activists would have to say about certain things. But I know now that there's very little that's new under the sun, like very, very little. I mean, we might think that, things that we're seeing and like, things that are happening are new, and some of it is new in a particular context, just but at the crux of it, a lot of things repeat itself in history, right? And so, that old head actually might know a little something about what they're talking about, and I see that now, and appreciate it so much more, and yeah, it makes me like more hungrier for more intergenerational spaces, because I see the value of it. I think my kind of part of why I didn't value it as much before was just, my political home was full of just young Black people. Like literally our BYP 100 core membership is 18 to 35. So it was literally like, if you old, you ain't even got no place in here, period. But no, just kidding. We do have a lot of elders that advise us, but yeah. And on the other side of that, I do feel like being engaged in a sustained way over a long period of time, for me, has kind of, I've had to resist against becoming jaded. I've had to resist against becoming disengaged. Yeah, on many levels. I've had to, which is why I kind of like regrounding in my purpose, regrounding why I, wake up every morning to do what I do is so important, because it's easy to just be like, it's just easy to be jaded. And that has been a struggle for me, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, and it's just time taking a toll, and just seeing the same things happen over and over again. Yeah, it's still a struggle, and even harder now that I don't have the same community that I had spent years building in Chicago, and in a different immediate political context in Columbia, South Carolina versus Chicago. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing struggle for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Will.
My turn.
Bella, do you care to?
Not my turn.
I felt like she just said. I felt like she just said it. But the question was about intergenerational activism.
If you feel like you missed out on the, your early 20s because you were dedicating it to the cause, and I forgot the second part, but that was the first part.
Well, yeah, and has that affected how you look at previous generations for,
Yes,
kind of kicking the can down the road with, to the next generation dealing with these problems?
No, I absolutely don't feel like I like lost anything in my early 20s. I feel like I made the most of my early 20s. I ain't gonna lie. Like I feel like I could look back 50 years from now, look back on my early 20s, like, oh yeah, that was the roaring 20s. What you talking about?
For real.
Good to know.
Like, no, we did that. Like, no, I don't regret it at all. I can't say I feel like I lost anything with that. If anything, I might feel like I lost some time in some relationships I shouldn't have been in. But not in my relationship to the movement. No, not at all.
That's beautiful. And then just your relationship with older activists also, has that been strong, healthy? How do you feel about, that community?
Yeah, so I ain't gonna lie. All the activists love me. I don't know what it is. Every generation love me, for real. I can't, it be the old heads, the super young babies, the ones right above, like, yeah, baby, you love boss. I ain't got no.
As you can see, Bella is confident.
I ain't never really had no problems with no older activists or nothing like that. Like, people tend to respect my perspective or what I have to offer. I respect what they have to offer. I ain't never really had those type of clashes. I could tell y'all a funny story though about when I first met Angela Davis. Now, cause this was okay.
So you're not gonna get us in trouble, right? You're not gonna get us in trouble with Angela Davis.
No. I hope not. At least let me tell you. Okay, so when I first met her, right? In the moment that I met her, I was already feeling like I'm the next Angela Davis. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I felt like she was supposed to see that instantly. Like, you know what I'm saying? It'd be random people who can see that. I feel like, come on, Angela, you supposed to see that as soon as you see me. Like, yeah, that's me right there. Right. But that was not the case at all, period. Okay. So so I was blown after I met her, because I'm like, dang, she not even all that no more. Like,
So you want her to fangirl over you?
Look,
only Bella will want this.
My girl.
But look,
meeting like hundreds of people, and you want her to think that you heard her protege.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought was supposed to happen. That's what I thought. And you know what I'm saying? It was a dream come true, me meeting her. That was my dream. You know what I'm saying? So I was really thinking about my dreams, not really putting it into real life context that I'm really meeting Angela Davis for real. You know, it was like I'm living a dream, but it was no, she shut that down real quick, baby. Okay.
Did you tell her?
But
Did you say something to her about thinking you were the next Angela Davis?
yeah, come on, yeah, I did. I was like, hey, said it like that, but I was like, oh, I'm like, okay, I know you
Like
Angela
meeting
Davis, but I'm
Beyonce and being like, I'm the
something
next
too, you know what
Beyonce.
Right. You're gonna find my EP in a little bit. Be like, you know.
right. I'm like, come on, man. You gotta come on now. It's gonna be people who wouldn't even know you who you are if I ain't say it in the song. So come on, Angela, you gotta come on now.
Wow.
But she
Wow. Meanwhile, first time I met Angela Davis, I was just like, can I have a picture? I respect you so much. I wouldn't know anything about evolution if it wasn't for you.
no, but she was so, but actually she was so poised and just so I learned so much from it in retrospect, not in that moment, but in retrospect, I learned so much from just how she carried herself. And it was just like, oh, okay, like I really gotta stop tweaking like
like you Angela Davis.
like I'm Angela Davis. That was really the moment that I learned that I'm not the next Angela Davis. I promise. That was the moment right there. I was like, oh no, I'm just Bella Boss. I'm not the next Angela Davis.
Well, not just, you know. I mean,
Oh
again,
my gosh.
a great segue to my next question. You, with all that you have experienced, what have you all? Oh, you might yell at me, but have you considered, seeing how the state of things, have you all thought about getting into public office or running? Like, do you trust where, at what level? I know this was gonna be like, a girl, really? That kind of
no,
question.
I'm not, that's not why I'm reacting like this. Go ahead, finish your question.
But have you, has any part of you thought that there's an ability to change the system from within at some point, or just changed your outlook on how to, or just how you move as an activist, or your career, your future in this movement?
Yes, but not, okay, yes to the latter part of your question, not to having considered running for office.
Okay.
I have no interest in being an elected official. I don't, but I also don't knock that as a, potential, like, I don't knock the potential of, I know there are like, there are people in Chicago City Council right now who's like politics I respect. Yeah, I mean, this is just a very, very, very small number, but like they there, right? That who have come out of like progressive social movements, right? And so they exist, right? I don't want to be one of them. I will have meetings with them, but I will turn up against them. But I don't want to be one. But in terms of like how my the issues that I care about, I have my work in the way that I move has evolved over time. So, I am thinking more about not just focusing both on structural change, policy change, as well as meeting my people's immediate needs. So I, as if you watch the film, you know that I am in the field of social work. I have a lot of problems with the field of social work in practice a lot of times, but I think for me, there was a lot of potential in direct practice work, in like trauma focused counseling. There's a lot of potential in like just conjoining direct services that meet people's needs with political organizing that that I really want to kind of be at the nexus of, which is where I'm moving now. You know, back when the Unapologetic was being filmed, I was in the streets a lot, and I was super far from finishing my PhD. So like, I really couldn't even think about what my work looked like outside of, you know, a direct action or a strategy session or like me in the classroom. But now I am working towards just kind of like combining all of my experience as an organizer, as a social worker, as a I don't want to call myself an academic activist, scholar activist, whatever. And yeah, kind of work at that intersection. But no, not as an elected official though. More like a I don't know, radical social worker. I don't know what to call myself, but but the way that I've thought about my work and how that looks has definitely evolved over the past 5 years for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's always evolving, actually. Like I was really just supposed to be doing poems and raps and stuff, okay? I don't know how they ended up having me co-organizing actions and all that. I don't even know how I got swept into that. I was really just supposed to be there doing my rap, doing my poems,
Doing my rap.
okay? But yeah, it's always evolving because you just see that it's a need for you everywhere, you know. But what I've had to learn is like, no, it's a need for somebody everywhere. It ain't a need for me everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody gotta be there to patch that hole up, but I gotta be right here and patch this hole up because this is what I can do well, you know. But yeah, you know, Janaé got me thinking about going to get my PhD. I feel like okay. For real, like not, you know,
Don't do it. Reconsider.
I'm saying, I be look, you be having me wanting to do it, and then you be crying in the film and shit. I be like, no, I ain't gonna do that. Boy, somebody make me cry like that, I'm gonna have to fight. I ain't gonna be able to. I'm not gonna get a good grade. You got me crying like that. But I'm just saying, it's always a constant evolution of like how you see yourself in relationship to the movement, like what you have to offer. Like since it's stuff that's not in the film, like I start working with a law firm, getting people out of prison who was sentenced, you know, to life in prison for drug crimes, you know, and that's really aligned with what I wanted to do anyway. And that's just one thing. I started working with a task force to reduce the number of women in prison in Illinois. So it's just like everything just I just start seeing myself like everywhere. Like, okay, I could do, this is important to me, so I can lend myself to this way. I can lend myself to this way, that way. I have absolutely thought about being the president of the United States of America.
This is why I laughed in the beginning, because one day Bella, we were about to do an interview, and she literally said, I need to figure out how to become the president of the United States. And I was like, what are you talking about?
For real, but we ain't there as a nation yet. You feel me? Like I ain't there personally yet either, but as a nation, we not there yet because I'm gonna need the people who vote for me to be coming like the people who voted for Trump to be coming, and I don't think people ready like that because I'm trying to do coups and all that. Like when I'm the president, baby, this gonna look a whole lot different. Okay, so I'm just like, okay, we gonna have to keep doing the work to try to get the population there, because I can't. If I'm president now, I'm being assassinated on the first day because I'm gonna do something I ain't supposed to do on the first day. I'm letting everybody out of prison. Y'all now what? Now I'm not good to nobody. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep trying to do the work to get get the masters on the revolutionary accord. So if I do run for office, I ain't gotta be I ain't gotta be showing up on the campaign trail like Angela Davis with the bulletproof glass walls around me every time I do a speech and shit. So I don't know. I probably can't do the public office, boy.
We're gonna lay a prayer over you just in case for the future, just to surround you and protect.
What you say?
I said they're gonna play this clip in a campaign ad if you ever do try to run for office. There ain't nobody go.
Well, we're coming to the end.
You're gonna pull up my tweets. It's over with. I'm not being elected nowhere, boy.
Ashley, I don't know how you weren't shaking constantly with the camera, just listening to like
what, laughing?
Right.
Yeah. That's the stuff we didn't put in. The unsteady shots.
Okay. Well, you all, it's been a lovely conversation. We're coming to the end. Ashley, I just want to wrap up with you. How do you, spending so much time with this footage, these people, how do you release a film like Unapologetic? And do you ever feel a pull to continue this specific conversation and these specific journeys?
Yeah, I mean, releasing this film has been a wonderful journey that I'm still very much so deep in. I think that kind of what both Janaé and Bella were just saying was like, I saw a need and I was like, this is somewhere where I can contribute. And, you know, I was 22 at the time. And if you would have told me everything that was going to happen on the way to getting here, I definitely would have reconsidered. But I think because, like I said, like I just felt such a relationship with the people that I was documenting that I knew that there was something special about this moment. And honestly, I just felt like I'm a talented filmmaker, and I don't think enough talented filmmaking is seen in Black and Brown communities and like non-extractive filmmaking. So I partially just wanted to do it to prove that like it's possible to tell stories in like ethical and responsible ways about Black and Brown communities. And so now, like, I mean, the film is doing really well despite the pandemic. You know, we were really like nervous that when it happened and we had to just make the decision to premiere it virtually, that we were going to lose a lot of viewership because like so much of the film is in community. So we were like, we want to share it with the community. But like people have just wrapped their arms around it. And I think with the uprisings that happened last summer, that really having a blueprint that was so recent to be able to look at has really allowed a lot of people that are in the work now to like relate to it and resonate with what's happening or what happened in the time that we were filming. And in terms of like moving forward, I'm kind of like how Bella and Janaé feel about going back on the streets. I'm kind of to, you know, because I really like, I gave my all to this film, and I really don't say that a lot, but I gave like a lot. And so there were a lot of things that I just haven't been able to do just like as a filmmaker because I really wanted to finish this. So, you know, I'm doing everything I can with like our impact campaign to get the film to the communities that need to see it and to get it to organizers and to people in Chicago and beyond. And hopefully serve as a blueprint to other younger filmmakers that are documenting on like how they can do this. But I don't think it serves the movement best if like the same voices keep, you know, I want to see how other, I guess, filmmakers like can contribute to this. And I think that I will always have a heart for documentary. I'm already looking at new projects in the documentary space, but yeah, this is just kind of like my love letter to Chicago and to the organizing community, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. And we go see what happens next.
Well, thank you for your work, your labor, your ideas, craftsmanship. Like this was a really important and impactful piece. So I appreciate it. And of course, Bella and Janaé, thank you for your work and your continued work for our community, you know, and all things. And thank you to the audience for following us tonight on this fun and, you know, also heavy journey, you know, of change. It certainly is something that, you know, I'm glad we're having more discussions on and people are just, you know, tapping into and learning more about as how we'll, you know, move this forward better, hopefully. Thank you again to Zami Nobla and Out on Film for having us, Sisters in Cinema, our night tonight. And everyone, please check out the rest of the festival slate. It ends on the 21st. There are a lot of wonderful films and moments that you should check out. And of course, you can register at zaminobla.org for more information. Everyone, take care of yourselves. Thank you so much. Good night.